You are listening to the IoT For All Media Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IoT For All Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Chacon, and on today's episode, we have George Karam, the CEO and chairman of the board at Sequans Communications. They are a leading developer and supplier of cellular IoT connectivity solutions, providing chips and modules for 5G, 4G, massive, and broadband IoT. So we talk a lot about the cellular IoT landscape today, different technologies, the comparison between them, different applications in the IoT space, which technologies are kind of right fit for different applications and use cases. We also talk about the challenges companies are facing when it comes to supply chain issues, project delays, slowness of market development, things like that. And we round out the conversation talking about the future of IoT and kind of what Sequans is kind of seeing coming up in the near future and what we kind of project going on later down the line. So this is a great episode. I think you get a lot of value out of it. But before we get into it, if any of you out there are looking to enter the fast-growing and profitable IoT market, but don't know where to start, check out our sponsor, Leverage. Leverage's IoT solutions development platform provides everything you need to create turnkey IoT products that you can white label and resell under your own brand. To learn more, go to iotchangeseverything.com. That's iotchangeseverything.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the IoT For All podcast. Welcome, George, to the IoT For All show. Thanks for being here this week.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for being with me as well.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. So let's start off by having you give a quick introduction about yourself, background, anything you think will be interesting for our audience to kind of hear more about.
Sure. I'm George Karam, CEO of Sequans Communications. I'm as well co-founder of the company. And my background is really working with many big companies like Alcatel, SAGEM, Philips, and my previous startup as well that I sold to Juniper Networks before incorporating Sequans. And I'm with Sequans since the incorporation.
And so tell me a little bit about the founding story of the company. I'm not very familiar with kind of how the company came to be, kind of the opportunity you saw when this was started. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Sequans from day one, we are really positioned the company to play in the wireless, 4G wireless at that time. Obviously, since then, we talk about 5G now. But we started the company originally really building 4G WiMAX. It was the first protocol that came to market. We had a lot of success with the smartphone business in those days with WiMAX. Then I will say life changed and WiMAX, for whatever reason, disappeared as a market, and the company has positioned itself on the 4G cellular. So since I would say 2012, the company is really doing 4G, 5G cellular, but we position the company to do cellular for IoT, not really to focus on a smartphone market where you have some big players playing there. And we see the IoT is a big market where you need to optimize the design of the chipset for this market, whether in power, cost, interfaces. So this is really what we do, and we try to do it to serve our customer in the IoT space.
So tell me a little bit more about kind of the difference in approach you have to take for building cellular for the IoT space as opposed to potentially more of the mobile and just the other spaces that cellular is applicable to. So just kind of what the difference is and what's important to note there.
Sure. First of all, when you are building for the IoT, you have various categories to cover, because when you talk about IoT, you have the low-end IoT, where what matters is really low power, cost. The connectivity matters a lot, but we don't need speed. We don't need very high speed. So you could be talking about few kilobit, few hundred kilobit per second, maybe few megabit per second. And this is one category. And here, obviously, it's not smartphone. You need to optimize for power, optimize for cost, make the chip very, very small, so you can have hundreds of millions of those chips sitting in sensors driven by a battery most of the time. And you have other category of IoT where really you are in the router space, you are in high-end industrial, in camera. In those devices, you need speed, but in the same time as well, you have different interfaces, you have different configuration. And if you look to the smartphone, challenge is completely different. It's really you need to optimize power and active mode. You need really to put this with many interfaces like the SoC and so on for the smartphone. So by definition, if you need to do your job properly, you need to design for IoT devices from day one. If you take something working on a phone to make it work in IoT, it will work, but you will not get the best in terms of performance and features. And this is really the key differentiation.
And from a company perspective, do you all have a certain focus from an use case wise, or is there any types of use cases you all specialize in or focus on, or maybe there's an industry focus, or how does that kind of work from your approach?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, first of all, we love to say that we have a comprehensive offer in terms of category to cover all the use cases of IoT. Really, it's IoT use cases. As I said, high-end use case, we're talking about a broadband IoT. In a broadband IoT, here you're really talking about high-end industrial, private networks LTE. You're talking about fixed wireless access connection to home. And when you go to the massive IoT, this category really you're talking about, as I said, low power technology. If you look to the use cases there, maybe the best way, we see many applications, but to characterize this at least with 4 or 5 key areas, we see a lot of development happening and we have a lot of success. Smart city is a key one. I'm putting there the metering. Mainly the metering is a key application. You see a lot of smart meter today going cellular. In the past, they were going mesh using proprietary technology. Thanks to the progress we have done in cellular in terms of power and cost, many meters are moving really to cellular. So this is really a key application there. You can find in the city like fire alarm, any other application, related to the city. Smart home is a key place as well. Even if there you live with the mesh technology, with the private wireless technology, proprietary, I should say, technology. But you have always cellular technology behind it, and we have a lot of success. We have big project, for example, with Comcast, Xfinity. This is using a Sequans product. We have as well the tracking devices. Tracking really is a big segment where you can see fleet management, tracking assets, or tracking people and pets. So this is really developing segment, and you have a lot of things happening there. Also, very interesting development in the medical devices, e-medical. We have, for example, customers, they use our chips for COVID tester, for scale, body scale, for blood pressure, all those kind of devices. So this is really typically where we're seeing. And you could expect maybe more development in the future towards agriculture and other application, which is still in the early phase today. But the fourth segment I mentioned, we see them really quite successful these days.
And what makes a use case more optimal for cellular, or what kind of requirements are necessary for cellular to be the right fit? I mean, when we're talking about cellular, we're talking about potentially NB-IoT, LTE-M, Cat 1, 5G. We're talking about a lot of different ways cellular can be used in IoT. But are there certain kind of high level parameters that you're able to look at for a specific use case based on the needs that it has to say, okay, this is better for NB-IoT, this is better for LTE-M, and kind of how that decision is made?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the first, maybe, Ryan, when you are positioning cellular versus other wireless technology, cellular, the key value is really it's global. You have it everywhere. You don't have to run and operate in networks. It's done by the carrier. So in other words, you can embed in any device cellular technology and it will run. You don't have to know that this is running there. While obviously if you use Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, you need to pair your device. You need to have a gateway to connect to it and do this work. So by definition, as soon as you go global and I want to have connection that no one has to pair it, cellular is the best technology. Obviously, it comes with a little bit of extra cost, but this is the best in terms of use cases. Now, inside cellular, your question is key. When you are using technology, mainly, you have very low speed. When you're talking about, for example, tracking to get just only positioning, maybe smart meter to read the meter, make limited the speed is very limited. Ideally, there is LTE-M and NB-IoT. And the difference between the two is not that major. It's really a question of the operator, what they have, you see today what they have deployed. China, India, they deployed NB-IoT. US, Europe is mainly LTE-M. So our devices support the two protocol, by the way, so it allows you not really to struggle between the two, and you can use either one, but they deliver the performance and power and performance and cost. Then you go to a higher category like category 1. Here you start talking with use cases where you have voice, you need speed like for camera, but you don't need very high speed. You need like maybe a few hundred kilobits per second, maybe 1 megabit per second, and so Category 1 is ideal for this. And the good things about Category 1 that it's global. All the carrier have it. There is no difference. In other words, you can move from any country to other country. You get Cat 1 available. You don't have to struggle with. And then obviously, if you go farther in the speed, now you need latency. 5G is ideal for latency. Higher speed, like for robotic or other application like this, or maybe fixed wireless broadband at home. Then you need really higher speed. You're talking about 100 megabit, 1 gigabit, and above speed. This kind of application, and obviously depend on the use case. You pick the right category there in terms of cellular.
Makes sense. And also, when you're talking about NB-IoT and LTE-M, it sounded like they're obviously very similar, but from my understanding, there are some different situations when it comes to the types of assets you're potentially tracking or using this for, that you would choose NB-IoT over LTE-M, whether it's fixed or mobile type assets. Does that play into consideration when you're thinking about this as well?
This is true, I mean, NB-IoT is not mobile. It's more for fixed. So LTE-M give you more the value of the mobility, a little bit more speed. And very honestly, from power advantage, the two, they match. There is not, it's really, you could hear some people saying NB-IoT is more optimal in power. It's not true. However, if you go NB-IoT only, you could have lower cost. You can save a couple of dollars on the solution because, the solution is a little bit, obviously less complex.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let me ask then also how iSIM kind of play into this, or just SIMs in general. Like how does this work? People are moving from region to region. They're changing different types of networks, things like that. How does kind of iSIM, eSIM, kind of that whole area play in when it comes to cellular?
I mean, obviously, you have a big movement around the SIM in cellular, by the way, and this is true for the smartphone, which is essentially, are you locked? Is your SIM locked to a carrier? Today, in the regular use case, you have a phone, you have a SIM, and this SIM works with one carrier. If you want to change to another carrier, you need to change the SIM. You take it out, you replace it by another one.
Right.
Obviously, when you have a plastic SIM and a consumer device, this is doable, right? I mean, you can imagine shipping a new SIM, the guy will change it and so on. The real problem in IoT it becomes much more complex. First of all, often we don't put a plastic SIM. You put an eSIM, which is soldered SIM, is a chip which is soldered. And as you were mentioning, you have as well the iSIM, which is integrated into the chip. What Sequans has in our portfolio of Monarch and Calliope, which are LTE-M, NB-IoT, and Category 1 product of Sequans, they integrate the feature of iSIM. In other words, now your SIM is part of the chip and you don't touch it. Now, if it's there, it's obviously cheaper, lower power, everything is much better. But now you need to add the change of the profile over the air. In other words, you have a device shipping from the EMS, the manufacturing, you get your device, you turn it on, and then you will have there a bootstrap on your SIM that will connect on the network. And based on the agreement you have with the carrier, we will know that you need the profile of AT&T or Verizon, and it loads the profile and you operate on this. And you can imagine that 10 years down the road, you negotiate better deal with another MNO, and you need to change your profile. You can do this operation over the air by really through, I will say, really through a service that can be offered by the carriers. So this is really where the world is moving. And it gives you flexibility. It gives you really, for IoT, is a must-have to get this flexibility, as we said, because you don't change SIM over there. And this is where we are moving. We are really in the beginning of this phase, I tend to say. And Sequans is the first company, by the way, to certify what we call the GSMA Common Criteria Certification of the iSIM. And Monarch is the first chip certified in the world for this.
That's awesome. Let me also ask you, kind of as we're kind of on this topic and thinking about just cellular IoT in general, where have you seen probably the biggest challenges to cellular IoT adoption in general, or where do you kind of run into roadblocks during use cases and solution development process of when it kind of ties to cellular IoT? Is there supply chain issues that you've seen? Is there I don't know, potentially just the market as a whole not picking up as quickly as it should? Like, just generally, what do you all see as some of the biggest challenges to adoption on the cellular IoT side?
Yeah, I mean, cellular IoT was from the beginning, I mean, to be honest, we all, get a little bit disappointed on the speed of taking off, right? I mean,
Okay.
the technology came in and so on. But when you listen, when you look to them in the mirror, and see what happens, in reality, at the beginning, you have new technology that came to market, LTM, NB-IoT. Even when the carrier were deploying this and they say they are ready, you still have holes here and there in the network, feature not delivered, the low power feature. So it took a while until the technology matured from network point of view, from device point of view, from end-to-end point of view, I would say. And now I could say it's all this behind us. It's there, it's working solid and so on. Then you enter another equation, which is the hurdle of, as soon as you put a cellular in the IoT, now you're talking about many people in the ecosystem. It's not anymore, just only if you put Wi-Fi connection on your device, there is no agreement to do. There is nothing to do. You put the technology, you make it work. When you put cellular IoT, then you are dealing with the carriers. You need to see the data plan, the agreement you have with the carrier. If they guarantee to you this service for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years sometimes. So you have all those challenges to come in the ecosystem to make it work. And in IoT in general, you need to go to the cloud as well, to the service you are providing. It's not a business of hardware. It's a business of services. And many people, by the way, playing in the IoT, in the first phase, everyone was trying to take it all or to take the biggest piece of the cake, and everyone was trying to offer everything. I'm not talking about ourselves offering the technology, but I'm talking about all the players. And this create and added more complexity, and where everyone will see his play. I'm going to offer the service, the cloud service, maybe over the top. The carrier, they offer optimized data plan connection for the IoT, the technology to get matured. All this has to take, time to happen. But we see today an inflection point. We're quite excited. We have huge growth in IoT year to year with that between 21 and 20. And we see 22 and down the road continue, even if we have some supply chain challenges that you mentioned, which is not related to IoT, is global for the industry.
So let me kind of follow up and ask about a lot of our listeners out there who are involved in either adopting IoT solutions, building IoT solutions, and the connectivity piece is always a topic of conversation. How should they be thinking about the connectivity in general for a solution and picking the right connectivity, whether it's one of the cellular kind of routes that we've talked about or something else? What are the key things that they should be thinking about early on in the process to understand what connectivity options they should be considering for their solution? Because I know oftentimes it ties into cost, latency, the bandwidth, the overall ROI, you name it. But just from your perspective, what does that conversation usually look like, and what advice do you have for people out there looking to better understand how to think about connectivity?
It's really, the first, I mean, you have two factors in reality. You have the cost, and you have, I will say, all the performance of the connectivity you are looking for, not to manage your local network. And this is really the main variable in general. If you can afford the cost, cellular is really the best solution always. And the cellular is optimizing this. Why? Because it's global, even inside the home. I give you an example. If you go to, I have a use case, which is security at home, where you deploy camera. So you could say, if I'm deploying in a home few camera, why I need to connect each camera to the cellular? I connect them with Wi-Fi to a gateway, and the gateway is connected to cellular. This is really the current topology that you see it in any smart home network. You get only one base station, one access point, delivering Wi-Fi, and you put stuff. Now the question, if you're deploying in a home many camera, 5 camera, 10 camera, in the garden, is your Wi-Fi network is going to sustain all this traffic? Believe me, it doesn't work.
Right.
As soon as you go above 3-4 camera, it's not going to work. And then you start to get, bad service somehow. Now, obviously, you can put cellular in every camera, but then you need to pay the cellular connectivity in every camera. So these are the kind of challenges that the market is seeing. Obviously, if you have a local gateway, easy network, you will get always cheaper to go over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. But if this is not there, you have no other option than the cellular, in my opinion. And Cellular is optimizing the cost in any case and getting better and better every day.
Yeah, I was going to say it's getting better and better for sure. So that's awesome. So one of the last things I wanted to ask you before we wrap up here is just generally from your perspective, what does the future of kind of the space look like? Whether it's focusing solely on kind of cellular IoT and where that's going for IoT, or IoT in general. I'd love to get your thoughts on just kind of where you see it going over the next, 12 plus months, and what you're most excited about.
Well, I mean, obviously, as I said, IoT was still at the beginning of the IoT ramp. What's also good to keep in mind that all the IoT projects, they tend to be, they are not consumer projects. They are not going just only for 1 year deployment, 2 years deployment. You have projects that they tend to be for 10 years, 20 years. So the wave is building up, and this is really exciting. I spoke about the application of smart city metering, smart home, tracking, and medical. This is really what's happening. From cellular point of view, obviously the trend there, moving with LTM, NB-IoT, and all this technology evolving to 5G. So we're going to see a lot of things happening to support core 5G, and get technology that you deploy today but will work over time on 5G network. So those are the kind of challenges that we are going to see them in the coming, I tend to say, 2 years, where you are going to see more and more people deploying cellular IoT, but they want to have this solution ready to go on the 5G as well, because you don't want to replace this technology in 10 years when 5G will be there only and there is no more 4G.
Makes sense. Well, that's I'm very interested to see kind of how things transform. And out of curiosity, this is something I was just thinking about. How have you seen, if at all, the pandemic kind of influence the adoption of cellular IoT based applications and solutions? How's that kind of been influenced? Where are you seeing kind of things now?
No, I believe it influenced. We had, if you want, let's say it like this. You had negative influence where the people get busy by solving their short-term problem, and longer-term project get a little bit delayed or impacted. This is what I call it on the negative, if you want. On the positive, it's completely the reverse, because people realize all this pandemic, we saw, for example, of the COVID, many product shipping in volume because of the COVID. Obviously, working from home, remote, learning, distance learning, but also even, as I said, COVID tester, connectivity, medical, e-medical. So people realize that at the end of the day, IoT is about observing any device in the network. You see everything, your asset. Right. It's good to have connectivity there. And then you can do a lot of things with this. It's not because you need connectivity. It's just only the connectivity enable many services in the device. And I can give you just one simple example, which is maybe not the first thing we think about it when we want to connect a device. Take appliances, right? I mean, you say, why I need to connect a washing machine? No one, at the end of the day, when I buy a washing machine, the last thing I want to do is to connect the washing machine. It has no value for me, in principle. But then if this washing machine is connected, then the guy selling this to you can collect all the information from the washing machine and can provide to you predictive maintenance to your machine. And you will never stick 2 weeks waiting to repair the washing machine when you have this. So it has a value, and all the devices are like this. No matter case you take it, it's always, you dig in, you realize that if it's connected, you can do much better in terms of efficiency. You can run better your business. You can provide more services. And this is what's all about IoT in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of those points you just hit on were or are super important for kind of an audience just get a sense of how things have been developing in the space. I do like the flexibility that cellular also is giving you, and the ability to kind of launch multiple applications that benefit from it. And as we mentioned earlier, cost is going down, connectivity is getting better, it's getting stronger, faster. It's just enabling so much more from a application side where maybe before we weren't able to do well. And medical is a great example of kind of a field that's happening in a lot of. So thank you so much for taking the time today. This has been a great conversation. For our audience members out there who are looking to learn more, better understand kind of what's going on at the company and stay in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Well, obviously go to our website, sequans.com, and we offer all cellular technology, as we said, for IoT from low speed to high speed.
And is there anything kind of in the next few months that we should keep our eyes out for that's kind of coming out and that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, we announced recently, by the way, many new features on our product. We announced as well GNSS support to our LTM platform by software.
Okay.
We announced the iSIM. We announced the second generation of our Cat1, which is much lower power, much lower cost. Many things, I will say, all those announcements happened almost in the last quarter, just before CES. Obviously, we will have more to come in the year and more announcements to come there. Our next generation product is really on 5G, and this is where the energy is put in the company in terms of innovation and development as a second platform to come.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, we'll look forward to seeing that. But again, thank you so much for taking the time today. This has been a great conversation. I really enjoy us being able to shed more light in detail on cellular IoT, kind of where it is now, where it's potentially going. And the stuff you all have going on is fantastic, and people definitely need to go check it out. So thanks again for your time, and appreciate you being here.
Thanks very much, Ryan. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching that episode of the IoT For All podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell notification so you get the latest episodes as soon as they become available. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.